The jungle was alive with the sound of insects and the distant calls of unseen birds. Tall trees stood like pillars, their branches weaving together to form a thick roof of green above. Sunlight slipped through in narrow beams, painting the ground with shifting patterns. Every step taken by the small expedition team sank into soft earth, damp from the constant breath of the forest. Raoul walked at the front, holding a wooden stick to push aside the hanging vines. His face was lined from years of travel and exploration, but his eyes still carried the bright spark of curiosity. He had heard the stories many times before, told by guides, whispered by locals, repeated by scholars who doubted and yet dreamed. A hidden lake, untouched for centuries, lay somewhere deep in this jungle. It was said to guard the tomb of a Mayan king who had drowned willingly to protect the secrets of his people. Behind Raoul walked Lena, carrying a pack heavy with notebooks, maps, and small tools. She was younger but just as determined. She loved the quiet moments when she could stop and sketch a carving on a stone, or note down a strange bird she had never seen before. To her, the journey itself was as important as the discovery. She often teased Raoul that he only cared about the goal, while she cared about the path. Raoul would laugh, but in truth he needed her careful mind. The two were not alone. A handful of workers from a nearby village joined them, strong men used to the forest paths. They carried supplies, ropes, and food. None of them spoke much. Their silence came from respect for the land and also from unease. The legends about the lake were not told for fun. Some believed the waters were cursed. Some believed spirits of the drowned guarded the treasure hidden below. By midday, the team reached a slope where the trees grew thinner. The air felt cooler, as though the forest itself was warning them they were near something different. When they climbed over the rise, the lake spread before them, still and perfect. It was round, almost too perfect in shape, like a mirror placed in the heart of the jungle. Its surface reflected the sky so clearly that for a moment Lena thought she was staring into another world. No waves disturbed the water, yet strange ripples sometimes moved across it, as if invisible hands brushed against the surface. Raoul lowered his pack and stood at the edge. He could feel the air change, thicker and heavier. He bent down, dipping his hand into the water. It was cool, cooler than it should have been under the burning sun. He pulled his hand back quickly, surprised. His skin tingled as if the water carried a hidden charge. Lena joined him. She knelt, studying the stones that framed the edge of the lake. They were not natural. They were carved, arranged in a perfect circle. Symbols etched into them were worn by time, but some lines remained visible. She traced her fingers across one and whispered, "These are Mayan signs. Look here, Raoul, this is not just a lake. It is a sacred place." Raoul nodded. He already knew, but hearing Lena confirm it filled him with more resolve. The stories had not been lies. The tomb of the drowned king might truly rest beneath these waters. As the team set up camp near the shore, the workers kept their distance from the water. They built fires and unpacked supplies, but none dared step too close. Raoul noticed their uneasy glances, but he said nothing. He knew it was better to let them move at their own pace. That night, when the fires burned low, Raoul could not sleep. He sat at the edge of the lake, staring at the still surface. The moon hung above, painting silver light across the water. For a moment, Raoul thought he saw shapes moving beneath, like shadows gliding deep below. He blinked and the shapes were gone, leaving only silence. Lena came to sit beside him. She carried a small lantern, its warm glow fighting against the heavy darkness. She asked softly, "Do you think the legends are true?" Raoul smiled faintly. "Legends always carry a seed of truth. The question is how much of it we will find." The lake gave no answer. It lay silent, calm, and endless, yet both of them felt it watching, as though it had been waiting for centuries for this moment. The night passed slowly, filled with the hum of insects and the soft crackle of the fire. When morning came, mist rose from the lake, curling like smoke. The team gathered again, preparing to dive beneath the surface. None of them knew what awaited below, but each felt the pull of the unknown. Raoul looked once more at the water and whispered to himself, "This is where it begins." The sacred lake did not move, but in its silence there was promise. The morning mist still hung over the lake, curling into thin ribbons that drifted toward the trees. The surface of the water looked calm, but Raoul could not shake the feeling that something beneath was stirring. He stood at the shore, tightening the straps of his diving gear. Today they would see what secrets the sacred lake was hiding. Lena checked the equipment carefully. She had prepared ropes, lights, and small waterproof bags for notes and samples. She moved with quiet focus, but her eyes often lifted to the water, as if she expected it to rise up against them. The workers from the village stayed behind at the camp. None of them agreed to dive. One of the older men, Matteo, had spoken the night before. He warned them that the drowned king did not welcome intruders, and that the water had claimed many who tried to steal its treasure. Raoul listened, thanked him for his honesty, and promised they were not here to steal. Still, he knew fear had kept the workers away, and only he and Lena would enter the lake. The two stepped into the cool water together. The chill wrapped around them, sharper than they had expected. Raoul pushed forward, keeping his breath steady, while Lena stayed close at his side. As they swam deeper, light from the surface faded, replaced by a strange green glow that seemed to come from the stones themselves. After several minutes, they reached a slope that dropped away into shadow. At the bottom, Raoul spotted something unusual. Large blocks of stone formed a wall, and in its center stood a round gate. The gate was carved with patterns that curved and twisted like flowing water. Raoul swam closer and ran his hand along the stone. The carvings shimmered faintly under his touch. The glow grew brighter, spreading across the gate until the entire circle of stone glowed with pale light. Lena's eyes widened behind her mask. She reached out and traced a different carving. To her surprise, the glow followed her finger as though the stone recognized her. Then the gate moved. The circular stone slid downward, revealing a dark passage beyond. A faint current of water rushed out, pulling at them. Raoul steadied himself and gestured to Lena. Together they swam through the opening. The passage was narrow at first, the walls smooth and carved with more symbols. The glow of the carvings lit their way, leading them deeper into the earth. They swam for what felt like forever, their breaths echoing in their ears, their hearts beating fast. Finally, the passage opened into a vast chamber. They surfaced, gasping for air. The roof of the chamber stretched high above, lined with crystals that shimmered like stars. The air smelled ancient, heavy with stone and time. Raoul pulled himself onto a ledge and helped Lena out of the water. They sat dripping and breathless, staring in awe at what lay before them. In the center of the chamber stood pillars of gold and obsidian, arranged in perfect circles. Between them rested platforms shaped like altars. Strange objects lay on the platforms, not quite tools, not quite statues. They were smooth, metallic, and unlike anything Raoul had seen in any museum. "This is not just Mayan," Lena whispered, her voice trembling. "This is something else." Raoul nodded slowly. He felt the same truth. The precision of the objects, the unnatural shine of the metal, the perfect symmetry. It was far beyond the skill of an ancient civilization that worked with stone and copper. Yet the designs also carried Mayan patterns, as if the people had learned from something greater. As they walked among the pillars, Raoul noticed more carvings on the walls. They showed scenes of men standing before tall figures with strange helmets, their faces hidden. Golden beams shone between them. In one carving, a king stood in the water, raising his arms as if offering himself. "The drowned king," Raoul murmured. "He was chosen. He gave himself to guard this place." Lena placed her hand on one of the carvings. Her fingers shook slightly. "These figures," she said. "They are not human." Raoul did not answer. He felt a strange pressure in the chamber, like the air itself was aware of their presence. The glow from the walls pulsed slowly as though the place was breathing. Suddenly a sound echoed through the chamber. It was not loud, but it was clear, like a distant hum carried through stone. Raoul turned quickly, scanning the room. The objects on the platform shimmered faintly, their surfaces rippling with light. Lena gripped his arm. "Did you hear that?" "Yes," Raoul whispered. "The chamber is alive." The hum grew stronger, spreading through the floor and into their bones. Raoul's heart pounded, but he forced himself to stay calm. He remembered Matteo's warning about the drowned king, about intruders who were not welcome. But deep inside, Raoul felt this was not a warning. It was a call. Lena stepped closer to one of the platforms. As she did, the object upon it lit up with golden light. It sent a wave of brightness across the chamber, waking other objects one by one. The hum rose into a harmony that filled the space with sound like music. Raoul watched in awe. The lake, the gate, the chamber, all of it had been waiting. And now, with their presence, it had awakened. He whispered to himself, "We were meant to find this." The light shimmered across the chamber walls, revealing more carvings that had been hidden in shadow. They showed the drowned king kneeling before the glowing objects, his crown resting at his feet. And above him a symbol of the sun shining upon humankind. Lena looked at Raoul with wide eyes. "This is not a tomb," she said. "It is a door." The glow from the walls faded slowly, but the strange hum remained. It pulsed through the chamber like the heartbeat of some sleeping giant. Raoul and Lena stood in silence, afraid to break the rhythm. Every sound they made, even the drop of water falling from their clothes, echoed across the wide space, returning to them as if the chamber wanted to repeat their presence. Lena raised her lantern higher. Its light caught the edges of the golden pillars, making them shine like fire in the shadows. The objects on the platforms reflected the glow, their surfaces too smooth to be ancient, yet too strange to belong to the modern world. Raoul stepped closer to one, bending low to study it. It looked like a bowl, but its sides were covered with flowing lines that shifted in the light. The more Raoul stared, the more the lines seemed to move. When he touched the rim, the hum rose sharply and his hand tingled as if he had brushed against electricity. Lena gasped. "Raoul, the walls." He turned and saw what she meant. The carvings that had been faint before now burned brighter, filling the chamber with pictures. They showed people carrying offerings into the lake. Gold, jade, food, even human sacrifice was shown. Yet at the center of each image stood the drowned king. He always appeared calm, his arms lifted toward the strange figures with hidden faces. Raoul traced the carvings with his eyes. "This place was not just for treasure," he said softly. "It was built to guard something far greater." Lena shook her head slowly. "But how could they build this? These walls, these objects, they are not Mayan work alone. Someone else helped them." The chamber answered her. A low sound, deeper than the hum, rumbled through the stone. The water in the pools around the platforms rippled, sending small waves against the ledges. The sound was not random. It carried tone, almost like a voice too ancient to form words. Raoul and Lena froze. Their breath came quick and their hearts beat faster. They listened as the chamber filled with the strange song. The echoes bounced from pillar to pillar, circling the chamber until it felt like the walls themselves were speaking. Lena whispered, "It is trying to tell us something." Raoul nodded. He felt the same. The hum and the echoes seemed to form patterns, not of language, but of rhythm. It was communication beyond words, meant to be felt instead of understood. They moved deeper into the chamber, their footsteps light and careful. The floor was smooth stone, but in some places the rock seemed melted as if touched by great heat long ago. Raoul wondered if the drowned king had seen this same glow, had walked across this same floor before surrendering himself to the water. At the far end of the chamber, they found a tall wall unlike the rest. It was covered in gold, polished smooth, with a single carving at its center. The carving showed a circle split by rays of light. Around it were shapes of stars. Raoul recognized it at once. "It is the sun," he said, touching the carving, "and those are the heavens." When his hand pressed against the center, the wall shifted. The golden surface rippled like water, and for a moment Raoul saw his reflection bend and twist. Then the ripple stopped and the wall stood still again. Lena stared at it with wide eyes. "It is not just a wall. It is a veil." They both stepped back, uneasy. The hum grew softer as if waiting. Raoul turned to Lena. "The drowned king came here because he believed this chamber was sacred. But what if it is more than sacred? What if it is a machine?" Lena's hand trembled slightly as she lifted her lantern to the objects on the platforms. "These devices," she said, "they are not offerings. They are parts. They belong to something greater, maybe to this wall itself." The chamber answered again, sending another wave of sound through the air. This time Raoul felt it not just in his ears but in his chest. It carried weight, a deep vibration that seemed to push his heart into the same rhythm. For a moment the two explorers stood perfectly still, caught inside the echo of ages. Then Lena whispered, "This is the chamber of echoes. It remembers every voice, every prayer, every promise made here." Raoul looked at her sharply. "And now it remembers us." The thought filled the air with silence. Even the hum lowered, as if the chamber had agreed. Raoul took a slow breath and steadied himself. He felt awe but also a rising fear. This was not just discovery. This was awakening. The drowned king had given his life to keep the secret, and Raoul now understood why. He whispered, "The past is not sleeping here. It is alive." Lena clutched her lantern tighter. "If it is alive, Raoul, then what does it want from us?" The chamber did not answer with words, but the walls glowed once more. Symbols of the drowned king, the sun, and the figures from the sky lit up together. The echoes repeated one final tone, steady and clear like the beating of a drum. It was not a warning. It was an invitation. The chamber of echoes pulsed with golden light. Raoul and Lena stood frozen, watching as the carvings on the far wall shifted like living images. The drowned king appeared in the glowing stone, his figure tall and calm, crowned with feathers and gold. His arms were lifted as though he was welcoming them. Raoul stepped forward slowly, his boots making soft sounds against the smooth floor. He had seen many ruins, many carvings, but never one that moved on its own. He whispered to Lena, "This is not a picture. It is a message." The figure of the king lowered his arms, and a voice filled the chamber. It was not spoken in words they could recognize, yet they understood it. The voice was heavy with time, deep with patience. It carried no anger, no fear, only purpose. "I was chosen," the voice said, "chosen to guard the gift left by the ones from the stars. They gave knowledge, but knowledge can be lost. They gave power, but power can be misused. To protect both, I became the keeper beneath the water." Lena gripped her lantern tighter. Her heart raced as she listened. The drowned king was not a tale told by villagers. He was real, and his voice now reached across centuries. The glowing image shifted again. Scenes appeared on the wall, showing tall figures with strange shapes covering their faces. They stood beside the Mayan people, teaching them to carve, to measure, to build with precision. Golden beams of light connected the tall figures to the people, as if passing knowledge from one to the other. Raoul stared in awe. "They were not gods," he said quietly. "They were visitors." The voice of the drowned king continued. "They came from far beyond, but they did not stay. They left their machines hidden beneath water and stone, waiting for those who would prove worthy. I was told to guard the path. My life became the seal." The image showed the king walking into the lake, his crown removed, his body sinking slowly into the dark water. Around him the people wept, yet they understood. His sacrifice became the key to lock the chamber. Lena felt a chill run through her. "He gave his life willingly," she whispered. The king's figure turned toward them as if hearing her words. His glowing eyes seemed to rest directly on Raoul and Lena. "Humans are the heirs," the voice said, "not because of strength, but because of will. The visitors could not survive here. They saw in us a fire that would not die, even when the world was cruel. That is why they trusted us with their gift." The chamber vibrated with those words. The hum grew stronger, shaking the golden pillars and sending ripples through the pools. The machines on the platforms glowed brighter, their shapes shifting like they were waking from sleep. Raoul's breath caught. He felt both honored and afraid. The drowned king had guarded this place for centuries, and now the guardianship seemed to pass to them. Lena stepped closer to the wall. "What gift did they leave?" she asked softly. The voice answered, though the words were more like feelings pressed into their minds. "A beacon, a promise. When humans are ready, the light will reach across the stars and the visitors will return. But the beacon must be awakened by human hands. Only by courage and trust can it shine again." Raoul turned to Lena, his eyes wide. "The machines are not just relics. They are the beacon. That is why they respond to us." Lena nodded slowly. The truth filled her with both wonder and dread. If the beacon called the visitors back, then humanity would no longer be alone. But was the world ready for such a meeting? The drowned king's image began to fade, but his final words lingered in the chamber. "Do not come with greed. Do not come with fear. Come with faith, and the light will answer. I gave my life so you may walk this path. Do not waste it." The glow dimmed, and the wall became still once more. The hum softened, returning to its low rhythm, as if the chamber itself was resting again. Raoul and Lena stood in silence, their hearts heavy with the weight of what they had learned. The drowned king was not simply a legend. He was the bridge between humans and something greater, something from the stars. Raoul finally spoke, his voice low but firm. "We cannot leave this place as it is. The world must know, but we must be careful. This is not treasure. This is trust." Lena nodded. She looked back at the golden pillars and the strange devices, glowing faintly like sleeping giants. "The drowned king spoke to us. That means the chamber chose us. It is watching to see what we will do next. They both turned toward the water, knowing they had only begun to uncover the truth. The lake above was no longer just a legend of gold and sacrifice. It was the doorway to something far older and far more powerful. As the echoes of the drowned king faded into silence, Raoul and Lena felt a strange bond. They were no longer just explorers. They had become part of the story, tied to the promise hidden beneath the sacred lake. The silence in the chamber of echoes did not last long. The golden glow along the pillars flickered again, this time stronger, as if the room itself had decided to test its new visitors. Raoul and Lena stood close together, watching the machines on the platforms. At first, the objects only trembled. Then one by one they began to shift, their smooth surfaces unfolding like flowers opening in slow motion. Golden arms extended thin and sharp, while spheres lifted into the air as though weightless. The hum in the chamber grew louder, deep and steady, almost like the sound of drums. Raoul whispered, "They are waking." Lena nodded, though her eyes were fixed on the nearest device. It hovered above its platform, glowing with steady light. It made no threatening move, but she felt as if it was watching them, judging them. The ground shook slightly and the water pools rippled again. Suddenly a noise cut through the chamber. It was not the deep hum of the machines. It was sharper, human, and filled with harsh laughter. Raoul turned quickly toward the entrance tunnel. Lantern light flickered there, followed by figures stepping into the chamber. A group of men appeared, carrying ropes, weapons, and greedy smiles. They were not part of Raoul's team. They were outsiders who must have followed the explorers through the jungle, waiting for the right moment. The leader of the group, a man with a scar across his cheek, raised his arm. "So it is true," he said, his voice echoing off the golden walls. "Treasure beneath the lake. All of it is ours." Raoul stepped forward, his heart racing. "You should not be here. This is not for you to take. It is not treasure. It is something else," the scarred man laughed. "Gold is always treasure. That is all we need to know." He motioned to his men, and they spread across the chamber. Some pulled bags from their backs, ready to fill them with whatever they could grab. Others raised their weapons, making sure Raoul and Lena could not resist. But the chamber itself did not stay quiet. The hovering machines responded at once. A wave of golden light spread from pillar to pillar, and the hum rose to a sharp tone that made the intruders stumble. The devices lifted higher, glowing brighter, and beams of light shot across the chamber like whips of fire. One man tried to step onto a platform, but a beam struck the ground before him, forcing him back. Another raised his weapon, only to have it pulled from his hand by an unseen force. The machines were not attacking to kill, but they were protecting. Lena pulled Raoul close. "They know who we are. They know we came with respect. But those men came with greed." Raoul nodded, his mind racing. The drowned king's warning echoed in his thoughts. "Do not come with greed. Do not come with fear." The scarred leader shouted at his men, trying to push forward, but the machines blocked every step. The beams of light drew a boundary around the intruders, forcing them back toward the entrance. The more they struggled, the brighter the machines became. Raoul felt the chamber vibrate beneath his feet. It was as if the place itself was deciding who belonged and who did not. He raised his hands and called out loudly, "We are not here to steal. We came to learn. We came to guard this place as the drowned king once did." The machines paused. The light around Raoul and Lena softened, no longer sharp or threatening. It was as if the guardians recognized his words. The beams turned away from them and focused only on the mercenaries. The scarred man cursed under his breath and shouted, "This is madness. It is only gold. Take it and run." But the chamber would not allow it. The golden wall at the far end flared with sudden brilliance, and the echo of the drowned king's voice filled the air once more. Though faint, it carried power. Greed will not pass. The mercenaries froze. Fear spread across their faces. The machines moved closer, herding them back to the passage. Their weapons and bags fell to the floor, useless against the will of the chamber. Finally, the scarred leader shouted to his men, "Retreat." The intruders stumbled toward the entrance, pushed by the beams of light until they disappeared into the tunnel. The moment they were gone, the machines lowered themselves back onto the platforms. The hum softened again, steady and calm, as if nothing had happened. Raoul and Lena stood in silence, breathing hard. The chamber had chosen. Lena looked at Raoul, her eyes wide. It protected us because we came without greed. The drowned king was right. This place is alive and it knows the difference. Raoul's hands trembled, but his voice was steady. Then the choice is ours now. We must decide if the beacon should be awakened. The golden wall glowed faintly again as if listening. The chamber waited. For Raoul and Lena, there was no turning back. The guardians had recognized them, and the drowned king had spoken. Whatever came next, they had become the keepers of the sacred lake. The chamber of echoes was quiet again, yet Raoul and Lena felt the weight of unseen eyes. The golden machines had returned to their platforms, but their faint glow remained, pulsing softly like the heartbeat of the chamber. The air was heavy, not with threat, but with expectation. Raoul ran his hand along the smooth stone wall, still warm from the light that had driven the mercenaries away. He could feel it waiting. The drowned king's words returned to him. The beacon must be awakened by human hands. Lena placed her lantern on the floor and stepped closer to the wall. The carving of the sun shimmered faintly as if calling to her. She whispered, "This is the key, Raoul. Not gold, not weapons. Only us. We are the key." Raoul nodded slowly. "But if we awaken it, what will happen? Will the beacon reach across the stars and call them back?" Lena's eyes were calm, though her voice trembled. "If the visitors return, it will change everything. The world will no longer be the same." But the drowned king believed humans were worthy. "We cannot turn away from that trust." The chamber answered her. The glow spread from the wall to the pillars, then to the machines. The hum rose again, deeper and stronger. The floor vibrated beneath their feet, and the pools of water rippled as if stirred by unseen hands. Raoul and Lena stepped closer to the wall together. Their shadows stretched long across the stone as the golden carving of the sun grew brighter. Without speaking, they both reached out and pressed their hands against the center of the carving. At once, a surge of energy ran through them. Their skin tingled and their hearts raced with the rhythm of the chamber. The wall shimmered like liquid gold, and images burst across its surface. Stars filled the wall, scattered across endless black. Then beams of light stretched outward, connecting one star to another, forming paths like bridges in the sky. Lena gasped softly. "It is showing us the map of the heavens." Raoul stared in wonder. The beams connected far-off worlds, and at the heart of the map was Earth, glowing brighter than all the rest. From Earth, one beam reached farther than the others, pointing into unknown space. The voice of the drowned king returned, softer this time, like a whisper carried by the echoes. "The beacon is a promise. If you awaken it with courage, the light will reach them. They will know humanity has chosen its path." Raoul felt the weight of those words. This was not just discovery. It was responsibility. If they awakened the beacon fully, the visitors would return. Humanity would no longer be alone. But what if the world was not ready? What if people treated the visitors as enemies or as gods or as something to fear? Raoul's doubts filled his chest like heavy stones. Lena turned to him, her hands still pressed to the wall. Her eyes glowed in the golden light. "Raoul, the drowned king, did not give his life for nothing. He trusted us even though he would never see the future. If we walk away now, his sacrifice will be lost." Her words cut through his fear. Raoul remembered the warning. Do not come with greed. Do not come with fear. He took a deep breath and pressed his other hand firmly against the wall. "Then we awaken it. Not for power, not for treasure, but for trust. For humanity." The chamber responded at once. The golden wall flared with light so bright they had to shield their eyes. The machines lifted from their platforms, hovering high in the chamber, their beams crossing in a web of light. The hum became a song, rising in harmony, filling the space with a sound that was not human yet felt deeply familiar. The map of stars shimmered again, and the single beam from Earth stretched farther, brighter, cutting through the darkness until it vanished beyond the wall. The beacon had been lit. Raoul and Lena stood in awe, their hearts racing. The chamber glowed with triumph, but slowly the light began to dim. The machines lowered back to their places. The hum softened to its steady rhythm once more. The wall now showed only the carving of the sun, but Raoul and Lena both knew what had happened. The signal had been sent. Somewhere, far across the stars, the visitors would see the light of Earth. Lena looked at Raoul, her voice quiet but steady. "We did it. We carried the drowned king's promise forward." Raoul nodded. "Now the future will come to us, and we must be ready." The chamber no longer trembled. It was calm again, as if satisfied. The guardians had passed their test and the choice had been made. For Raoul and Lena, there was no turning back. The lake above still lay silent, but beneath its waters the beacon had spoken. Humanity had declared itself ready to meet the stars. The Chamber of Echoes was calm again, its golden light fading to a gentle glow. Raoul and Lena stood side by side, their hands still trembling from the surge of power that had passed through them. They both knew the beacon had been awakened. A message had gone out across the stars, though they could not see where it had traveled or who would hear it. For a long time they said nothing. The silence of the chamber was not empty but full, as if it held the breath of history. Finally, Raoul lowered his hands and whispered, "It is done." Lena nodded. She looked around at the pillars, the machines, the pools of water. Everything was quiet again, as though the place had gone back to sleep after completing its purpose. "The drowned king guarded this secret for centuries," she said softly. "Now we have carried it forward. We are part of his promise." Raoul's eyes lingered on the carving of the sun at the far wall. It no longer glowed, but he felt its warmth in his chest. He turned to Lena. "We must protect this place. The world is not ready to know everything, not yet. But one day, when the time is right, humanity must understand what happened here." Lena agreed. She picked up her lantern, the flame flickering weakly in the heavy air. "We will leave no gold, no relics taken, only the memory of what we saw. That is enough." They began the climb back through the tunnel, moving carefully in the water. The glow of the carvings guided them, fading slowly behind as they swam upward. The cool water pressed around them, but it no longer felt threatening. It felt like a cloak, closing gently over a secret that had been revealed only for them. When they finally broke the surface, the jungle air filled their lungs. The mist still drifted above the sacred lake, curling in soft shapes. The workers at the camp rushed to the shore, relief spreading across their faces when they saw Raoul and Lena alive. Mateo, the elder, stepped forward. His voice was calm but curious. "You entered the waters of the drowned king. What did you find below?" Raoul and Lena exchanged a long look. They could not tell the full truth, not yet. But Raoul spoke with respect. "We found a place of great power and great peace. The drowned king still watches over it, and it must remain untouched." Mateo studied his face, then nodded slowly. "Then it is as we believed. The waters are sacred. They do not give their secrets to those who come with greed." That night the campfire burned bright, but Raoul and Lena sat quietly, listening to the forest. The calls of birds, the rustle of leaves, and the steady rhythm of the lake filled the air. Yet beneath those sounds both of them felt something deeper. It was faint, but it was there. The knowledge that somewhere far away a light now burned across the sky, carrying Earth's voice into the unknown. Raoul spoke at last, his tone firm. "The mercenaries will return. Others will come too, seeking gold, seeking power. We must protect this place, Lena. The world cannot see it as treasure. It is more than that." Lena looked into the flames. "We cannot guard it forever, but we can share the truth carefully. We can prepare people to understand, so when the time comes, humanity will welcome the visitors with courage, not fear." The fire crackled, and the jungle answered with silence. Both of them knew the burden was heavy, but they also knew it was theirs to carry. In the days that followed, Raoul and Lena packed their camp and prepared to leave the jungle. The workers, though curious, asked no further questions. They too felt the weight of the sacred lake and wished only to return to their homes. Before leaving, Raoul stood once more at the water's edge. The surface was still, reflecting the bright sky above. He bent down and let the cool water run over his hand. It no longer tingled with warning. Instead, it felt calm, almost like a farewell. He whispered, "The drowned king, your promise is safe with us. We will not fail." Lena stood beside him, her eyes shining. "The lake will keep its silence, but the stars will one day speak." Together they turned away, stepping back into the forest paths that would lead them home. As they walked, Raoul felt the pull of the jungle fade, replaced by the weight of the future. Somewhere far beyond human sight, a signal was traveling. It would take years, perhaps lifetimes, before it was answered. But one day the visitors would return, and when they did, they would find a world shaped by the courage of those who had stood in the Chamber of Echoes, who had trusted the promise of the drowned king. The sacred lake lay behind them, quiet and still. Its surface showed no sign of the golden pillars or the glowing machines beneath. To anyone else, it was only a circle of water hidden in the jungle, but Raoul and Lena knew the truth. The lake was not a tomb. It was a doorway, and now humanity had opened it.